Good morning everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to overcome your fear of public speaking. You probably know that public speaking is universally around the world considered one of the number one fears, if not the number one fear of public speaking, and Jerry Seinfeld, if not the number one fear, certainly near the top of mankind's fears. And Jerry Seinfeld made that comment that apparently we would rather be in a coffin than delivering the eulogy at someone's funeral. And that to me really does capture the essence of this fear around public speaking, this fear around getting on our feet and presenting to a group of people. And so many of the people that I work with are so eloquent, so effective, one-on-one, across the table, and as soon as they stand up, something changes and they feel within themselves, they feel that they're dying, they feel that they're unable to do this. So today is about giving you some skills to deal with these nerves, this fear, this anxiety before speaking. So if your name was called up and you're the next keynote speaker, just imagine what happens to you in terms of your anxiety and your nerves. So my aim is that all of you will go away with a couple of things that you can do, change, include to be more confident. Most of you know me, so Peter Jew's my name, and I'm a public speaking trainer and coach. My passion is helping people, I guess, to overcome their fear of speaking so that you can find your voice and contribute to society, i.e. share your message, share your passion, share your knowledge, both confidently and effectively. That's my passion. That's the area that I work in. Most of you know that I've avoided public speaking for much of my life because I have a stutter, but the last 5 or 6 years I've been doing public speaking, and I've really addressed my own fear full on and now help other people overcome their fears. So that's a little bit about my background, but I think most of you know that about me. How to participate, ask questions as we go. 2 ways to ask questions: anytime. Type in the dialogue box, type in the question box. Peter, can you explain that a little bit more? What about this situation? How do I deal with this? Or feel free to type in a comment. Yes, I agree with that, Peter, and recently the same thing happened to me, and I will share those comments. So that's the first way to ask questions. You've got the dialogue box. And in asking questions, don't wait for me to say, are there any questions? Anytime I say something that triggers curiosity or triggers some comments from you, please type away. Share. It's the sharing that's really going to make a difference. The second way of asking questions is put your hand up and I can open up your microphone. And when I open up your microphone, you just ask your question. Everyone else on the webinar will hear that, and I'll share my answer as best I can. Take notes as we go, and I have just mentioned that you could get a recording of the webinar if you wanted, and also I can send you a PDF copy of the slides. I think to make webinars and any seminars more effective, one of the best things you can do is to think and apply the knowledge to your own unique situation. So the best way to do this is to apply what I say to a previous presentation you've done. So a recent presentation, one last week or one last month. And could have you done anything different that would have changed the outcome of that presentation? Or if you don't have one recently, think of one you've got coming up or one that you could do and maybe you're holding back. What could you do? What could you change? What could you include from today's webinar that would make your forthcoming presentation more effective or make you more confident? So it's about not just taking notes and thinking, wow, that's nice, but really applying it to your own unique situation. So that's the thinking part of the webinar. How can I use this in my public speaking, in my next presentation? Let's get started. So I'm walking around the room with a microphone and I thrust the microphone in front of you and say, would you like to add your comments to what we've been talking about? This alone is enough to put the fear into many people. I mentioned that fear is universally around the world mankind's number one fear. Dying, number 2. In Australia, snakes is number 3 and spiders is number 4. So this is good news. What it means is universally, most people fear public speaking. The reality is most people with a fear of public speaking or with nervousness of public speaking, such as myself, still go ahead and do the public speaking effectively. So the fear or the nerves do not have to stop you and do not necessarily prevent you from being an effective speaker, an effective presenter. And Mark Twain made that famous quote, there's 2 kinds of speakers in the world, those that are nervous and those that are just liars. And I'm sure none of us are liars. So nerves, it's just universal. So what I'm going to cover in this webinar is to help you understand the role of nerves in public speaking, talk to you about your reality and your reality distortion, so what's happening for you. I'm going to teach you some skills about reframing your nerves, the importance of preparation, the importance of doing more speaking, and the strategy of getting out of your comfort zone. I mentioned earlier on that I did a workshop in Bunbury yesterday. Everyone who attended that workshop on how to overcome their fear of public speaking was taking a risk. Everyone felt uncomfortable, but they realized that registering and paying for a workshop was the first step, and there was many other people that should be doing a public speaking workshop that haven't taken that first step because it just feels too uncomfortable. So they're the steps that I'm going to share with you, that each of them will add to your confidence and your ability to deal with your nerves and your anxiety around the thought of presentation skills and public speaking. So let's understand the role of nerves. Mark Twain, as I mentioned, considers that everyone is nervous. Those who say, look, I'm not nervous, are liars. So nerves have a part to play in public speaking. Nerves help you spill into your peak performance mode. And if you think of public speaking as a performance, if you think of public speaking as a sport, then nerves are an important role. I love this quote that I got in the Australian newspaper from Sally Pearson. She was about to compete in an Olympic final and she was asked if she was nervous. And she says, yes, I am nervous because it's the Olympic Games, but I'm glad to have nerves. So Sally Pearson's glad to have nerves, and that's not verbs, that should be nerves. I'm glad to have nerves today. If I don't have nerves, then I'm not ready. If you did not have nerves, you would probably not be ready to speak. The competent speaker has a level of anxiety, a level of nervousness that puts them in their peak performance mode. Now, don't get me wrong, if you are too nervous, then you may freeze, and that's the rabbit in the spotlight. If you're not nervous, in other words, you're totally calm, then you will come across as blasé. You will come across as flat. You'll come across as if you've got something better to be doing with your time. If Sally Pearson was too relaxed, she would miss the starter's gun. So the gun would go and she would be left in the blocks because her nervous energy would not enable her to respond at her peak performance. So I want you to understand that nerves are part of your role as a speaker. Ringo Starr has nerves. Ringo Starr, drummer for the Beatles, over the last 40 years that he's been playing with the Beatles and in his solo career, and he also plays drums for other bands, so he still travels the world. This headline It's a play on Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Pukey in the Sky with Diamonds. Ringo Starr vomits before most performances. So his anxiety, his nervousness is such that he feels like vomiting. He vomits. He goes on stage, does a really good job, takes 5 to 10 minutes, so 2 to 3 songs before he starts to relax. Are those first 2 to 3 songs bad? Does he muck up those first 2 to 3 songs? No. He's just dying as he delivers a really good performance. So understand, as a speaker, you may have nerves, but you'll still be doing a really good job. So those people who come to my workshops and say, Peter, I wish to eliminate nerves, I wish to be totally calm before I go on stage to speak, I need to apologize to them because I cannot make your nerves go away. I don't want to make your nerves go away. I want you to understand they have a role to play, and I want you to understand that you can harness that nervous energy and bring them under control. If Ringo Starr is nervous before a performance, if Sally Pearson is nervous before a performance, surely you and I can be a little bit nervous before a performance. One way of thinking about your nerves, think of your nerves as brumbies, wild horses. They're out of control. They're magnificent beasts. They're running through the Alps, flat out, going any which way they choose to, left, right, completely out of control. The wind is flowing through their manes. Magnificent. Think of your nerves as wild horses. Don't shoot them. Instead, tame them, harness them, and they'll take you on the ride of your life. So it's not about killing your nerves or shooting your nerves. It's about learning to control them, learning to harness them, and they'll take you on the ride of your life. Think of your nerves as wild horses. In Australia, we call them brumbies. Don't get rid of them. Some of the best thoroughbreds, some of the best racing horses have come from Australian brumbies. Some of the best speakers, those really great inspirational speakers that stand up, inspire you, give you stories that are life-changing, give you information that's so valuable to you. They're dying with nerves as they deliver that brilliant content. And they're not dying, they're aware of their nerves. So sometimes the speaker that is really confident is like the duck that's gliding gracefully across the water, calm, collected, and under the water there's the feet swimming madly back and forth. That's what an effective speaker is like, doing a great job, but with a little bit of nervousness within them that the audience will not even be aware of. I'm now going to talk to you about your reality distortion, your reality as a speaker. You stand up and this little voice whispers into your ear, that was a terrible job. You really mucked up. You forgot to do that. And your reality is that you beat yourself up. 2 lines in front of you. Which one is longer and which one is shorter? The dotted lines. You know the answer. They're both the same length. But the reality makes the lower line look smaller because of the arrows going one way versus going the other way. So it's your reality as a speaker is not the audience's reality. You've seen this one before. Do you see an old lady or do you see a young lady? It depends on perspective. So I want to give you a tool that's called your anxiety reality check. And you can substitute the word nervousness, so your nervousness reality check, your fear reality check. Simply, if I put your nervousness, your self-reported nervousness on a scale of 1 to 10, many people in my workshops, many people will say that they were 7 or 8. I had a young gentleman yesterday. He said he was a 9. He did his first speech in front of 10 people. He stood up and spoke about himself a little bit about his work, and what he would like to take away from the workshop. They're the 3 points I get everybody to speak about in their icebreaker speech in my workshop. Then he sat down, and then I said, look, before we go on, and I showed him this anxiety scale, where would you rate yourself? And he said 9. I couldn't believe it. He said 9. I then asked the audience, the other 9 people in the room, I want you to disregard, take no notice of his own reality score. From what you heard, from what you saw from that young gentleman, where would have you put him on the anxiety scale? Everybody said 3 or maybe 4. This is a universal law of public speaking. Whatever's happening for you, whatever you're noticing as a speaker, the audience only sees 50%. They only see half of what's happening for you. They do not hear the quiver in your voice. They do not see the sweaty palms. They do not see your heart bursting out of your chest. So what that means, guys, is that you're doing 200% better than you give yourself credit for. Twice as good already. So don't give yourself self-feedback. You know, after you've presented or you've spoken up at a meeting and you go away and that little person perched on your shoulder whispers in your ear and says, you didn't do that very well, Peter. You mucked up this. You forgot to talk about that. You need to silence that inner critic, because it's the audience's perspective that matters. And if the audience thinks you did a good job and the audience walks out of the room with some information, if you go away from this webinar with 1 or 2 things that you can use, then I've done a great job. I've done a good job. So this is your anxiety reality check. It's a universal tool. Now, the power of this tool is if we can get the young gentleman who rated himself as a 9 yesterday, and we saw him as a 3 or a 4, if I can get him through doing a workshop or a webinar like this, deep breathing, relaxation, doing more public speaking, if I can get him to get himself down to an 8, so I'm not even asking him to eliminate the nerves. He's still got wild horses, but he feels just a little bit more comfortable. The audience is then going to see him as a 2 or a 3, which frankly is brilliant. From the audience's perspective, he's doing a great job. So you don't have to eliminate nerves to be really effective. Not just okay, to be really effective. You don't have to eliminate nerves to be Ringo Starr. You don't have to eliminate nerves to be Sally Pearson and win a gold medal. That is the good news. So guys, don't beat yourself up and understand you're already doing twice as good. I love this acronym. You've probably heard it before. False expectations appearing real. This is fear of public speaking. Expectations, you can also put evidence, false evidence appearing real. And this is where the anxiety reality check really comes in. Your reality, your evidence, your expectations are not the audience's expectations, are not the audience's reality. So if that helps you, fear, you've seen it before, it's probably not going to happen. I do 2 guarantees with my audience in my workshops. 2 guarantees. Number 1, you will not die. And number 2, in this workshop, as a result of this workshop, you will not lose your job. So, you know, it's your expectations. You think you've done a bad job. You think your nerves are flowing out of your body and everyone can see how nervous you are. No, that's not true. And I love this information as well. 80% of what we worry about does not happen. So why do we invest so much energy, so much effort in things that are not going to happen? So the anxiety reality check is about acknowledging that you've got some nerves, recognizing you're doing twice as good as you think you are, and the audience is not seeing the level of nervousness that you're experiencing. Don't worry, be happy. Just do it. I'm going to pause for a moment. Any questions? Any comments? Yep, somebody likes the wild horses. That's really good. There's another metaphor or analogy. I get confused with metaphors or analogies. It's called the butterflies. So sometimes when you're about to speak, you're the next speaker. So Marie, you're up next. You get the butterflies, you know, the knots in your stomach. So it's not about getting rid of those butterflies before speaking. Rather, it's about making the butterflies fly in formation. Have you got all your butterflies organized and they're flying in that beautiful formation? So whether you're a wild horses person or a butterflies person, you know, those metaphors work for me. Those analogy works for me. Don't get rid of the butterflies. Don't shoot the wild horses. Instead, harness their energy and they'll take you on the ride of your life. Any other comments? Okay, reframing. Reframing is looking at things from a different perspective. One of my reframes that I use in my own life is there are no mistakes, they're just lessons. So something happens to you, you know, things don't turn out how you hoped them to be and you think, well, what a mistake. Well, really, it's not a mistake, it's a lesson. The only mistake would be doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And that's Albert Einstein's definition of insanity. So I like to reframe things. So what is the lesson in this? What is the lesson in this? So you can reframe your nerves, your anxiety, to become a more confident speaker. So reframing is just looking at things from a different perspective, choosing a different subset of data almost to give you a different outcome. So learn to reframe your nerves, and it's an alternative way of viewing your nerves, an alternative way of viewing things. So let's give you a couple of reframes. Reframe 1, get rid of nerves, replace your nerves with excitement. So David, you're about to be introduced as the next keynote speaker, and you feel your heartbeat increase, your palms get a little bit sweaty, your adrenaline starts to flow and you're nervous. No, you're not nervous, you're excited. You're full of excitement. What happens when you're excited is your adrenaline flows, your blood vessels vasoconstrict, your heart rate goes up, your palms get a little bit sweaty, and you're excited. Guys, it's the same physiological response. You're about to get on the world's tallest roller coaster ride. Are you excited or are you nervous? It doesn't much matter. The body responds physiologically the same way. The biochemicals that are released are similar. So I ask you, choose to be excited. You're up, David. I hope you're excited. That's reframe number 1. Reframe number 2, get rid of public speaking. I mentioned earlier on in my introduction, these people are very eloquent one-on-one. I'm having a chat with them before we start. They arrive early. I have a chat with them over morning tea and over lunch, and they're just eloquent. They're effective. They communicate beautifully. And then when they stand up, something happens. They're now standing up in front of 20 people, and they change the paradigm. They move into public speaking. They stand upright. They stop breathing. They put a plum in their mouth and they throw this switch. I have now moved into a public speaking mode. Don't do public speaking. Just have a conversation with everyone in the room, all 150 people. Yes, you may have to have a microphone so your voice goes a bit bigger, and yes, you're standing up instead of sitting down, but really the correct attitude, and all the great speakers, Steve Jobs, Anthony Robbins, those people, they're just having a chat with the people in the room, one-on-one, all 150 of them. The Aboriginal people I work with, they call it yarning. Just have a yarn with the people in the room. It's important you do this also, because let's say you are a proper, polished public speaker and you stand up and you put a plum in your mouth and you do everything perfectly. In fact, you do not put one word wrong. Then when we sit down and we have a chat with you over morning tea, or the seminar's finished and we're now talking, and you become more normal or more human, less polished, I'm going to wonder, who is the real Peter? Who is the real person? So who you are off stage with those one-on-one conversations needs to be who you are on stage. Otherwise, you will suffer from an identity or a credibility gap in the audience's viewpoint. In fact, Peter's really casual. He's a nice, easy guy to speak to. But when he gets on stage, he becomes this monster. He becomes this robot. So on stage, make mistakes. Be human. Have a conversation. Get rid of public speaking from your vocabulary. From this day forward, don't do any more public speaking. I want you to have a conversation with the people in the room. Reframe 3. I call this the Chinese way. The Chinese culture is very respectful. They bow. They do everything to deliver good value, to honour their citizens. They care for their parents within their own homes. Really respectful culture. When you're nervous, nervousness is a state of self. You're inwardly feeling your nerves. You're inwardly wondering about what the audience is thinking about you. You're inwardly dwelling on, I hope my message is what they want. In fact, nervousness is not only focusing on yourself. Nervousness is not only a state of self. Nervousness is a state of selfishness. If you're standing up before an audience and you're focusing on your nerves, then you are robbing the audience. You are using your energy, you are using your efforts to feed your internal ego, your nervous state, at the expense of your delivery to the audience. And when I mention this to Chinese people that I speak with, that I'm teaching to do presentation, they think, holy cow, I would hate to be disrespectful to my audience. I'm now going to put my nerves off to one side. I'm going to come on. I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to be 100% present for the audience. I'm going to give it my best shot. And then when I leave the room, I'm going to pick up my nerves and take them with me. So it's kind of another way of looking at it. It's not dismissing that the nerves, it's not saying the nerves will go away. They're there, but don't focus on them. You need to be 100% present for the audience. Otherwise, you are in your ego state. There's a saying within public speaking is not about you. It's about the audience. As a presenter, as a trainer, as a facilitator, you need to leave your ego outside the room, and that kind of includes your nerves. So if that reframe helps you, by all means. I've got another one, and this is not really a reframe. It's about the elephant in the room. This may help you. Tell people up front that you are nervous and you do not enjoy public speaking, but you've got some information that is really valuable and you just want to share it with them. Bang. You don't have to hide the elephant anymore. For me, my elephant is not just my nerves. My elephant is that I stutter. So do I do a workshop and not tell people that I stutter? Do I do a keynote presentation and not somehow weave the fact that, by the way, guys, I do have a stutter? No, I don't. I announce that. So one of the strategies you could use would be to, early on in your introduction, let the audience know that, by the way, guys, I don't enjoy public speaking. In fact, this makes me quite nervous, but I'm really passionate about this topic, and I know you want to walk away with 2 or 3 things that are going to help you solve your problem, achieve your goals, control nerves in your speaking. So I'm going to proceed even with my nerves. That's the elephant in the room. I'm going to pause for a moment. Comments, questions. Any reframes that anyone could use? Is anyone going to get rid of public speaking and just have conversations? Who's excited instead of nervousness? Just write those comments in. So someone's concerns is that they'll be unable to organize their thoughts because of their nerves. And that's a really good question and a really good comment. And in terms of your thoughts, one of the things I encourage people to do is to make sure you know your content so well that you can plug and play. Plug and play means no matter what happens, power goes out so you can't use PowerPoint. Someone speaks into your time, so all of a sudden you've only got 20 minutes instead of half an hour to speak. No matter what happens, you know your content. And part of controlling nerves, and I also talk about body language and using the platform, part of being able to do those process level public speaking assignments is that you need to have your content under control first. So yes, if you're struggling with content, it is really hard to control nerves or do some high-level nonverbal communication. So you need to know your content really well. The other thing, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on, Marie, is you need to do some repetition. So your content, you probably need to present multiple times. So your content becomes automatic and you can now focus on the other things, which is attending to the audience's needs. It is a good question. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Any other comments? So preparation, and this is basically what I've just alluded to, Marie. You need to know your audience inside out. What are their values? Are there any cultural nuances you need to be aware of? So when I go to Geelong, I acknowledge the Watherung people, the traditional landowners. When I go to Bendigo, later on in the year, I'll be talking about the Dja Dja Wurrung people. So knowing your audience, handing business cards over to our Asian neighbours, the Indonesians, the Singaporeans, the two-handed exchange of business cards, that is culturally appropriate. It's really about knowing your audience inside out, knowing your venue. Don't walk into a room for the first time and present. Really important that you've done your homework. Know your topic so you can plug and play. Those people that you really admire, you know, those presentations that are absolutely nailed, they're normally preceded by spectacular preparation. So I love this quote: spectacular performance is always preceded by spectacular preparation. In the workshop, I share another quote. It's called the 6 Ps of public speaking, and simply prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So do you really know your topic, your content? Do you know your venue? Do you know your audience? I was at a new venue yesterday, so turning down the lights so that people could see the videos I was playing required using a fancy, intricate keypad at the back of the room, and you had to press and hold for 5 seconds to dim the lights. And then when you want the lights back up, you have to press another button and hold. Now, trying to figure that out as I'm presenting would look really unprofessional, and it would add to my nerves and anxiety. So the conference organizer, I arrived an hour and a half early, so I'm there at 8 o'clock for a 9:30 presentation. We go through this, I practice it, I know the venue. There's problems with the audio visual, so I need to get all that sorted out. So really, preparation is what helps you to control some of your nerves. And that slide should just be coming up to you now. So spectacular performance is always preceded by spectacular preparation. Know your audience, know your venue, know your topic. When you've got those ticked off, you've got less to worry about. Know your audience. Are there any people in there that are going to ask difficult questions? Are you delivering a bad news story? Reducing of funding? Redundancies, reducing of staff? Anticipate the questions that you're going to be asked. Prepare answers for those questions. Know your audience. I mentioned about know your venue. Does your voice carry to the back of the room? One gentleman yesterday had a big booming voice, and he was seen as being aggressive in a lot of the meetings. And so by just standing him back to the back of the room, he came across less aggressive. Are you going to use PowerPoint? Is there a stage? Do you have to step up on the stage? Are the steps to the left or the right? The lighting, I've just spoken about the lighting. The platform. Some of our presentation venues in Perth have big columns holding up the roof, and as you move to left to right, you're going to obscure part of the audience. You need to know all of that beforehand. Seating. Sit in some of the seats. Is there any difficulty with the seats? What do the seats feel like? Are they hard-backed plastic chairs? Then you need to get your audience, you need to give them an opportunity to stand up every 20 to 30 minutes, or are they reasonably comfortable chairs? How do you find that out? You arrive early, you sit in those seats and you experience the seats. Know your topic really well. Can you present without notes? Can you respond to questions, difficult questions? Where do you get extra information? So someone asks you a curly question. Have you got a colleague or a friend or an expert back at work that you can get back to? Our politicians take questions on notice and they're given 72 hours to respond to a difficult question. Where does your data come from? I mentioned time, so the speaker before you speaks into your time. You're now speaking for 20 minutes instead of 30. Can you do that? The speaker before you doesn't turn up. You're now speaking for 40 minutes instead of 30. Can you do that? That's what I call plug and play. No matter what happens, you've got your content, your message down under control. Do more speaking. This is what you need to do. I have a rule in terms of public speaking. And public speaking is not like riding a push bike. So let's say, Marie, you get really good at public speaking and then you don't do it for 6 months. Don't think that you can just go back on stage and all of a sudden those nerves will be at the same level and you'll have the same confidence as before. I think you need to stand on your feet once a week. My challenge to people in my workshops is, how are you going to get before a group of people and do a mini presentation, a formal presentation at least once a week? You need to immerse yourself in public speaking. Anthony Robbins says repetition is the mother of skill. So volunteer to chair more meetings, but when you're at a meeting, stand up. Do something on a whiteboard, do something on a flip chart. As soon as you stand up, you'll notice the physiology change. And yes, you will get nervous, or if you've reframed it, you'll get excited. And just draw a chart, draw a pie chart, or put some sort of quote on the whiteboard. That is a mini speech. I had a couple of people in my workshop yesterday that work within the mining sector, and they do pre-start meetings every day, and they do toolbox meetings. And in Perth, there's lots of what they call lunchbox meetings, where they're looking for someone just to stand up and speak for 5 minutes on a topic, raise one issue around a safety aspect. So create an opportunity. Do community presentations. If you work in the community sector, you'll know that Lions Club, Apex clubs, Rotary clubs, Probus clubs, always looking for guest speakers. And your topic does not have to be your level of work. You may have a hobby that also is of interest. Just let the Lions Club know that if they ever want a guest speaker on this topic, you would be available to speak. Join a public speaking club. I'm talking about Toastmasters. I'm talking about Rostrum. I'm talking about the Penguin Club. They are 3 public speaking clubs that you'll find around various cities, rural communities in Australia. In Bunbury yesterday, I had people from Bunbury, I had people from Busselton, I had people from Margaret River, and I had people from Dunsborough, southwest of West Australia. There is a Toastmasters club in Bunbury, there is a Toastmasters club in Busselton, there is a Toastmasters club in Margaret River. So even though this was a southwest rural community, there's 3 Toastmasters clubs available for those people who want to do more public speaking. If you want to deal with your nerves, you need to do more of it. The only way to get over your fear of doing something is to go out and do that you're afraid of. Dr. Susan Jeffers. Read the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's the world's #1 bestseller. The only way to become more confident in your speaking, the only way to deal with your fear of public speaking, the only way to overcome your nerves of public speaking is to go out and do more public speaking. Anthony Robbins said, repetition is the mother of skill. Unfortunately, it's not like riding a bike. My journey, when I started out, I joined 3 Toastmasters clubs in Perth. I went to a lunchtime meeting on a Monday, a lunchtime meeting on a Wednesday, and a lunchtime meeting on Friday. Being in Perth, I was lucky. It didn't interfere with my home life, and it was just my lunchtime. I would go to a meeting and speak at a Toastmasters meeting during my lunch break. My job also required me to do community education for the health department, so I also found myself speaking at high schools once or twice a week. I also belonged to my self-help group for people who stutter, called the Speak Easy Association, so I regularly every week used to attend a speakeasy meeting. So I found myself speaking anywhere between 4 to 5 times a week. And soon my nerves, I was standing up and I noticed, gee, my nerves are under control. I'm still a little bit nervous, but I'm now not focusing on them. I'm not even realizing they're there, and I'm focusing on the audience, and my mind is flowing clearly, and I'm responding to questions. You need to do more public speaking, guys. The next tip, the next tool is you need to take some risks. So with those do more meetings, maybe you need to volunteer. And one of the young guys, in terms of his actions, his next step, one of the young guys in the mining sector in Bunbury said he was going to put his name down to lead the next toolbox meeting at his workplace. And I said to him, how does that make you feel? He said, yeah, nervous. It's out of my comfort zone, but he's going to do it. So you need to take some risks. I have a couple of sayings that I share with people. The first one is, if you're not nervous, then it's not big enough for you. In other words, if you're not nervous, you're playing a safe game. You're staying within your comfort zone. And with most things you do in life, in terms of growth, taking on a promotion, going back to university as a mature age student, agreeing to do a presentation, require us to get out of our comfort zone. That's what happens. That's how we grow. The other saying I like to leave people with is, take a risk every day. So what risk are you going to take tomorrow that's going to get you closer to your speaking goal, closer to your desired outcome in terms of controlling your nerves? What did the young gentleman do? He agreed that he would lead the next toolbox meeting. This comes from Dr. Susan Jeffers. So please take a risk every day. Now, don't expand too large. I encourage people to take a small risk. So if you don't do public speaking at the moment, try 5 people first. Maybe it's some friends or some colleagues at work. Maybe it is that lunchtime toolbox meeting. Once you've done that for a few times and you're feeling a little bit more comfortable, join a Toastmasters club. Toastmasters club will have 10 to 12 people in a club, 10 to 15 people at any one meeting, and most of the people there are participating for the same reason that you would go. They're afraid of public speaking. In fact, then participate in a Toastmasters speaking contest against different clubs. So instead of having 10 or 12, you'll have 20 in a room. Then do a state conference, then maybe a national conference. I had one person come to my workshop a few years ago and they said, Peter, I hate public speaking. I die, my palms go sweaty, my voice quivers, my mind goes blank, and I just stand there and nothing happens. I'm really petrified. Next week, I'm presenting at a national conference in front of 2,000 people in Sydney. Can you help me? Don't do that to yourself. This person has jumped from absolutely petrified of public speaking to now doing not a state conference, a national conference. I love to do it one step at a time. I think that is the best way to expand your comfort zone. One step at a time. What risk can you take tomorrow that'll get you closer to your desired speaking goal? Without risk, you're probably going to stay in the same place you are at the moment. As a person who stutters, I had to take lots of risks. I had to join my first Toastmasters club. I went for 3 months before I spoke. Then I had to finally agree to do my first speech. I then had to agree to speak in a public speaking contest. Big risk. I then had to quit my job with the health department of WA and start my public speaking business. Even bigger risk. I was a senior medical scientist of 30 years standing. So take your risks. Some good public speakers that I think are great speakers and within the public limelight, that's one of my questions. I think Barack Obama speaks extremely well. I think Malcolm Turnbull speaks fairly good in the limelight. I think that Bill Clinton was an effective speaker, and Bill Clinton now goes around the world speaking very well. I have a problem with Julia Gillard's nonverbal communication. The bobbing of her head makes her not very credible. I have a problem with Tony Abbott and his and he often just opens his mouth. So as he's about to speak, his mouth just goes open and no sound comes out. So Barack Obama is very effective, uses extremely powerful pause. In the public limelight, if you want to Google or look at some YouTube, Steve Jobs is really effective. Now, Steve Jobs is not perfect. Steve Jobs is having a conversation. So some of the Steve Jobs YouTube videos, you'll see him speaking at the Apple conferences. This guy's real. He's just sharing these magnificent new products and he gets standing ovations. He uses the rule of 3. He's always got 3 things he wants to talk about, 3 stories I can share with you. So there are a couple of people that I think are public figures and politicians that are really great speakers that come to the top of my head. One place you can go to see some really good speakers is the TED Talks, www.ted.com, and you'll see some good speakers there. Subscribe to the TED feed. Every week I get a few TED Talks and I look at those and you can find some really good speakers there as well. So thank you for that question and that comment. So moving on, so summary, understand the role of nerves. They're probably not going to go away. You don't want to be nerve-free. Nerves is what puts you in your peak performance. So the wild horses, the butterflies. Your reality distortion. You are not as nervous as you think you are. from the audience's perspective. You are doing a better job than you think you are from the audience's perspective. It's not about you, it is about the audience. Reframe your nerves. Get excited, have a conversation, be respectful for the audience. Just put your nerves to one side. Don't feed your ego. Disclose the elephant in the room. Do your preparation. Prior preparation prevents pathetically poor performance. Spectacular performance is always preceded by spectacular preparation. Do more speaking. Repetition is the mother of skill. Immerse yourself. How are you going to get on your feet once a week? Take some risks. Join a Toastmasters club. Volunteer to do something that you wouldn't normally do. That's what I've covered today in the steps to overcome your fear and become more confident in public speaking. Those of you who want more information, over December and January, I'm going to run some online courses and some self-paced sort of e-learning courses. There's 3 courses that I'm going to run over December, and they're going to run for 6 weeks. They're going to include 6 one-hour webinars. So you've just been on a 1-hour webinar almost. We've got 9 minutes to go. I'm going to record these webinars, and I'm also going to run them live. So it's a 6-week course. If you cannot attend every webinar, you know the recording will be available to you to view in your own time, hence self-paced. You'll also have access to me for 6 20-minute Skype coaching sessions. So one-on-one, we'll interact via Skype after you've seen each of the 6 modules, each of the 6 webinars. I'm going to provide you with workbooks. As well as the workbooks, after we've done the webinar, I'll send you the learning outcomes, which will be a question sheet that you can use, and I'll also provide you with the answer sheets. These relate to the key learning outcomes. There's 3 topics, so in fact there's 18 webinars. The first topic is how to overcome your fear of public speaking, and I'm going to run that for 6 weeks, and that'll be say 9 till 10 each Monday morning over 6 weeks. Then I'm going to do winning presentation skills. So this is more advanced. So this is less about nerves, but how do you be persuasive? How do you use your nonverbal communication? How do you use the platform? How do you structure a presentation? How do you make sure they get your core message? How do you use stories to create that emotional journey so people remember? And the third online course will be thinking and speaking off the cuff. This is an even more advanced speaking skill. I think off the cuff speaking, so you know when you're on, when you didn't even know you're on, the boss grabs you and says, can you give a quick 5-minute update on your project, and you have to stand up. I think that's the ultimate public speaking skill. I'm going to run each of those courses. I'm going to run them at $247 plus GST. So that's 6 1-hour webinars plus 6 20-minute Skype sessions. The workbooks, everything will be recorded. I'll put a membership-only site on my website so you can access self-paced as you wish. Anyone that wants to do more than one topic, I will provide a discount. I'm going to give you more information, but do email me if you have any interest in really enhancing and embedding some public speaking presentation skills over, the Christmas sort of break. Next steps, what are you going to do from what you've learnt today? Albert Einstein defined insanity doing the same thing over and over again. I'd really love a quick comment from each of you. What's one thing you could do, and today's Friday, so I won't say tomorrow, what's something you could do next week? One of the tools that might help you become more confident. So just quickly type in those comments. What can you do from what you've learnt or what you've heard me talk about next week? Because if you don't do anything different, then you're going to keep getting the same outcome. So please just type away one of those things you're going to do. While you're typing those in, and I've got a comment, someone likes the idea of reframing. So reframing Oh, so they're going to get excited. Yep, so they like that excitement one. They're going to speak more at meetings. So when you speak more at meetings, to make it a public speaking session, create an opportunity to stand up. Yeah, if you just sit down, then you're not going to create that public speaking opportunity. When you stand up, you'll notice your anxiety will go up. You'll notice the physiology will change, and that's now a public speaking. Offer to chair a meeting. Good idea. Step up. Can I chair the next meeting? Can I run the next safety meeting? Can I run the next pre-start meeting? Can I run the next lunch time toolbox meeting? I've got a host of upcoming workshops that take us to the end of the year, and they're in Melbourne, they're in Bunbury, they're in Karratha. We've got some in Albany. We're going to test Albany. So if any of you got any colleagues in Albany, please feel free to let them know that we are going to go to Albany and run some workshops. Just go to my website, www.peterdew.com.au, and you'll see events. I always post upcoming events. December the 3rd will be our last formal workshop, and that one's in Bunbury. And then we'll fire up again probably in February. Hence, these online courses are going to keep me busy and keep me occupied during December and January. And what it means is I'm creating content for you guys to use at your own pace. At your own pace. Next webinar, October the 20th, how to connect and build rapport with your audience. And that's one of the things people worry about in terms of nerves. What if my audience doesn't like me? What if I'm not in connection? How do I know when I've built rapport? So this is, once again, that free webinar. Share the webinar links to any of your colleagues. Anyone can attend this webinar. So that is coming up on the 20th of October, 9 to 10 Western Standard Time. So that is unfortunately 12 to 1. So it could be your lunch break for people in eastern states. You know how to get to me. Like me on Facebook, Public Speaking Dynamics. Put some comments on Facebook. Send me an email at info@peterdew.com.au if you have any further questions, or you want to access the webinar recording from today, and make use of me in any way you can. Any final comments? And we'll finish the webinar 1 or 2 minutes early. Any final comments? Any final questions?